Ala todo machogun. Allí borere, allí borara. Allí borere, allí borara. Allí borere opa koso. Allí borere.
All right. Okie dokie. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to another Friday episode of Ancestral Eyes. This is episode 33, and we've got a special show on tonight. Woohoo! We have guests that are representing at least 3 countries, possibly 4 countries if Baba Nelson joins us. So we have Canada, US, England, and we will maybe have Mexico. So, and 2 time zones, 2 or 3 time zones. So, welcome everyone to our special episode. And this episode is dedicated to Obatala. And it's also, we are going to be talking about Ifa as a tradition. And we are welcoming back, first guest is Baba Faseye. Welcome, Baba Faseye, back to Ancestral Eyes.
Thank you, Ekulio.
And tonight's other guest is Bolin McJob, who is hailing from England. Welcome, Bolin.
Aboruboye. So, England by way of Nigeria, by way of Ogun State, Southwest Nigeria, but live in England at the minute.
And
so, I'd like to say Kabiyesi Ifagbemi and Teresa. Yeah, thank you for having me, and of course, my brother and my Baba, John Jérôme. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Ashe, Roland, pleasure to have you and Baba Faseye with us, and my co-host Teresa Boye. Welcome to everyone tuning in. We have a special show where we're going to, as Teresa indicated, we're going to talk a little bit about the Obatala cult, the Obatala as an Orisha, also a little bit of reacquainting ourselves with the spiritual journey of Oba Faseye over the last several years, over a decade, and 28 trips to Nigeria. And we're very happy to have my good friend Wolin, who is, again, hails from Nigeria, and is, as he says, in England, and he works at the BBC, and has a fascinating story as well in terms of Ifa in his life, and Ifa tradition as he sees it, both in when he travels back to Nigeria, which he does frequently, and in England. So I think it's going to be an interesting show, and hopefully Baba Nelson will be able to join us. He's just involved in a ceremony, but hopefully he'll be tuning in later, and we'll have a very good discussion. And before we begin, in Cuba, December 4th is the feast day of Santa Barbara, which in Cuba, Santa Barbara was syncretized with Orisha Shango. So as much as we will talk a lot about Obatala and other aspects of Ifa-Òrìsà tradition in Nigeria and diaspora, we'd be remiss not to praise Shango Kabiyesi Lube wa Lube Oluo sign on this day, December 4th, where all of the diaspora, especially the Afro-Cuban tradition, venerates, worships Shango, and remembers their traditions and the traditions brought to them by their forefathers. So, Kabiyesi Shango, and welcome.
Yes, welcome. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with Baba Kabiyesi Ifagbemi Faseye Efunsola. I said it right, didn't I?
You got
it. Okay, so we're going to start with Baba Faseye and welcoming him back because we have something special to announce, that Baba Faseye has had confirmation and the recognition of his ordination as Oba, and that is of the Orisha Obatala in Africa. So could you give us a little bit of background about how this started, just a quick background, and the confirmation, please?
Last year, some of my chiefs, some of my Oloye, and I made the trip back to Nigeria to go in to do some traditional rites there. And so we went to Ile Ife to go meet His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife, as well as the leaders and the elders of the cult of Obatala. And so we were invited by His Divine Grace, Oba Ishoro, O Dada Obalesun, the Arole Obatala Agbaye of the world, to come and to do my coronation rites as Obarita Obatala of America. And so this year, after having gone last year, some of my other Oloyes came with me and also became chiefs. We have a Baba Osho, Obarisha Obatala, and we have Baba Mero, Obarisha Obatala of America. And of course, there's many other Obas and other leaders of the Orisha Obatala as well here in America, here in the diaspora. And this year as well, Obalesun gave us a letter and recognizing that we had completed everything, that all the things that were necessary for all the necessary rights, what they called the Ikaro, all the Ikaro rights of kingship, of Obaship and Obatala had been completed. And we were blessed to have him send us a letter here in the mail as well, just to let us know that everything was now done, everything was finished, and to confirm my title as His Spiritual Majesty, Obarisha Obatala of America. So now we're continuing to do the work of Obatala, continuing to work on promoting peace and love and harmony and understanding amongst all of our fellow brothers and sisters here in the diaspora, as well as in Nigeria. So I definitely want to say thank you again as well to Obalesu and to the Oni of Ife for their support and for their recognition, and also believing in our community here to give us the support to continue to do this work and to do things in a good way, to be able to be of service of humanity. So it's a blessing. We're very grateful for that.
Absolutely. So that means now, with the connection to Africa and America, we are now going to have something special. There was something that I think you are going to be establishing in the Ile.
In the future, it's my hope that we can have some communities and set up some places of worship and temples and things like that in, back home as well. A lot of people from Nigeria, from the motherland as well, contact me here. They'll contact me through my webpage and things like that to express an interest in Ifa, Orisha, Isheshe, things like that. And so we want to be able to, continue to keep people connected and have a place where people at home as well, are able to connect with us and with our temple community. We have some good Babalawos, good Orisha priests and priestesses that are part of our community in Nigeria as well, from Oshogbo and Ife, all throughout Nigeria. And so we want to work on eventually being able to break some ground and have some places of worship where people can gather together in a temple in Nigeria as well. There's a lot of temples there as well. Perfect. We're hoping to be able to seed a temple there as well amongst the community to be able to help uplift the people and do things in the right way.
Perfect. So the first time you had come on our show, we had formed an alliance here in Canada and United States, as well as Mexico, and with regards to South America, with regards to Danielle. Is that not right, Jean Jérôme? And
it's a long-standing alliance between different temples and study groups.
Yes.
In total, over 20 Babalawos and growing worldwide. In Spain, in England, in Canada, in US, in Mexico, in Nigeria, and basically also with Baba or Bokono Daniel Dafoji and the Vodun Fa temple he has in Uruguay. He was initiated again in Abomey. And with Ifa World Conference, again, as I mentioned, with Baba Nelson, with all doing research and continuing the exchange of knowledge and information and recording of the traditions, so that they can continue, not just for our generation but for future generations.
No, I think that's totally important. So now that we've got sort of, well, I guess kind of, we got the world covered, wouldn't you say, Baba Faseye, now, as far as Ifa is concerned?
We're getting there. Things are growing.
That's awesome. I love that. I think that's amazing. So how does that make you feel? I bet after all these years, this coming to the fruition and getting the confirmation, how does that make you feel? When did you first hear about that, the confirmation?
I think it was maybe a few months ago. It was when my Ape-son-in-law in Nigeria, he went on our behalf to go and to collect the letter and things like that. We had been told by Obalesun that everything had been completed. They sent us some information, let us know that everything had been done, but everything was, we've met all the necessary qualifications of what was necessary in order for things to be, in balance and done according to traditional rites. And then I received a phone call. I spoke with Obalesun and some of the other members of the Obatala family as well, and with my Ape-son. It's a good feeling. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of effort. Obviously that goes into something like this. It's not something anybody can do alone. It's not something that I can say. It's by my own parts, by the grace of Oludumare and the grace of Obatala, Obatarisha, and Onile. It's by the grace of the Orishas that this was able to be made possible. So, we just have to give thanks to our ancestors and give thanks to our Creator for making things possible to do things like this.
No, I think that's amazing. It really is. So now, with this being established, what is it that you're going to be able to do here in America that you can also do in Africa? Can you give us a little bit about that without, exchanging any kind of...
we're going to continue doing what we've been doing. The name of our temple is Ile Orisha Temple. So that basically means the Orisha White House, you could say, roughly. Because we're of Obatala.
The Orisha Vatican. More like the Orisha Vatican.
That's a good one.
So you can say it as the Orisha Vatican, like I said here. So, we're going to continue to do and promote the worship of Orisha. Obatala is considered to be the father. He's the father of all the Orisha. And so, all things come through him. And so we're going to continue to promote Obatala. We'll be continuing doing, Obatala initiations. We've just initiated a few other people recently into the priesthood of Obatala. And so we're grateful that they've completed their necessary rites. And of course, I've let our community back home know that we brought some new people into the fold of Obatala as well. So we're going to continue to do that, initiating priests and priestesses. We're looking for people who have talent and skill, people who want to do things in a good way, people want to work together and build community, to be leaders and things like that, that we can continue to branch out and have opportunities to be able to go to different temples and places like that to promote fellowship, to promote brotherhood, sisterhood, and things of that nature. Of course, we do Ifa as well. We do Ifa initiations and rituals and things of that nature. All these things they're all one. That's why I call it Isheshe. Isheshe is traditionalism, right? So it's all these things. So we're going to promote things as we've been doing, hopefully expanding a little bit more, working on completing my book and getting that finished as well. So, by the grace of Ifa, by early next year, we'll be looking at the release of my first publication that will be covering all numerous travels back and forth throughout West Africa and just sharing, perspective behind how we're doing things here and some tips of how people can use this tradition to grow here in the diaspora. Things are a little bit different than they are in Nigeria, but we're still the same people. So we just want to try to build some bridges of understanding to see what what things we have in common. Those are things we need to be building on as our common interest, things of that nature.
So
are we able to ask questions?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Bolin.
Yes. So Kabiyesi.
Obaki, yes.
So I just wanted some clarity.
Yes.
In terms of the enthronement.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis how it works back home in Nigeria. So, for instance, even when the Oni was ordained, or when he was enthroned, he had to get a staff of office from the government of the state before it was official. But I'm trying to imagine that your kingdom or your kingship is a spiritual one.
Benny, yes.
From the so from the Oni being the Arole of Oduduwa, being the high priest.
Yes.
You know, because according to history, from what we understand, you have the Alafi, you have the Awujale, you have the Alake, you know, all these paramount kings.
Yes.
But the Oni is the high priest.
Yes.
But because the Ifa religion is what the community relied on, the Oni had to be elevated into the status of a king because he had all the spiritual powers.
Yes.
And was a descendant of Oduduwa. Is like, a representation of Oduduwa on earth.
Yes.
So it's like a pope, so to speak. So the pope having the same power as a president is what the Oni is. Hence why he's a king, you know. So in my understanding, you being a king is as a result of you being a high priest. Hence why you probably don't need the government of Osun State, the governor, to give you a staff of office before your kingship is valid, because it's a spiritual kingship. Am I right, Kabiyesi?
That's correct, Benny. That's correct. What you're saying, Baba, is true. It's true. You know, I started off as Babalawo, and of course, I'm still Babalawo. So I started off initiating to Ifa, and Apukuta, you know, and then traveling throughout different places and receiving, different titles and appointments, and then later on, becoming Obarisha for Obatala. So it's a spiritual title, Of course, like you said, there's a difference between political Obaship, rulers of town and things like that, like Alafin and other Obas, the Oba of Lagos and many others. They're rulers and spiritual leaders of the town. And then, of course, we have those who are Obas in spiritual titles. So like king and priest, like the Oni is a king priest. So he, every day of the year, there's always some festival going on in Ife. There's some worshiping of the deities and things like that. And so that's part of the Oni's responsibility. Okay. And so that's the same.
Yes. Thank you, Kabiyesi. So I wanted to establish that so I could make some observation as we proceed, because I'm very happy about what's happened. I feel like this is the kind of move that needs to be made. But my observation is sometimes even the custodian of this faith, they do it a lot of disservice, because I've witnessed situations where His Royal Majesty has also kind of made this Ifa religion second class to the Christian faith. Straight from Ikbebi, straight from the forest, straight to a church, falling down prostrate. And people say, why has our high priest gone to church to bow to Jesus? And he said, I recognize the King of all kings. So those kind of statements, without disregarding anybody's faith, as an Ifa devotee, I feel like that's like Pope Francis going to the mosque.
Yes, I understand.
And saying he accepts Allah as superior to Jesus. Or the king of Saudi Arabia going to the Church of England and saying that he prefers Jesus, he accepts that Jesus is superior to the Prophet Muhammad. So for me, to have the high priest, the Arole of Oduduwa, the person who probably issued the certificate that you have, go to a church right here in England, in many occasions, leading the choir, singing songs like Jesus is my Father, I'm thinking, I thought Orunmila is your father.
Yeah.
I thought you are the descendant of Oduduwa. And here you are with a microphone saying Jesus is your father. I'm a bit confused.
Yes.
So why I say that, why I have to bring this up, because this is going to be an interesting segment. I feel like we need to get into it very quickly. Kabiyesi, some of the job that you have,
yes,
especially in the diaspora communities, we need to address this aspect of making our faith look like we're doing something wrong.
Danny, I understand you.
There's this feeling that there's something not right about what we're doing. And so we need to quickly get that information out there very quickly. You know, that being a devotee of this religion does not make you an agent of Satan.
Of course.
Because I feel like there's that problem in Nigeria. So, but then the good news is the diaspora community, you know, it's a very it's a very robust one. It's very lively.
Yeah.
So that's why I made mention of an Ifa, a Vatican of Ifa. Like at some point, when we get to a point where our temples, our places of worship is accessible, it's right there. Everybody can come in the same way you walk into any Pentecostal church or any mosque. You know that you can walk into an Ifa temple and not feel like there's somebody watching you and you want to sneak in without anybody seeing you. Because from my experience, when people need help, when they feel like, oh my God, I can't handle this, they find the Babalawo in some corner. You know, it's a hidden spot.
That's
Do you
true.
know what I mean? Because obviously in Nigeria, the temples don't have marble floorings and massive pillars like the churches do.
That's true.
And because these Babalawos are not necessarily looking for cash or driving a Bentley, so they're constantly looking impoverished whenever you find them. In Oshogbo, in Ife, in Abeokuta, wherever you go, they look poor because it's not money they're looking for. Do you know what I mean? So
understand.
it feels like, so it always feels like when people really need this kind of backing or support or some spiritual backing, they will find these guys, whatever they have, they do whatever they want to do, but oftentimes in secret. So it feels like I don't want to be seen to be doing this, but I will do it though, because I need all the support that I can get. Let me find that Babalawo in that corner, do the prayers, do the whatever, and then go back, you know, back into broad daylight. So that gives an impression like you're doing something that's not right. So I feel like at some point, some of the jobs, some of the task ahead, Kabiyesi, especially in the diaspora community, is to make our faith wide open and to address all the elephants in the room. You know, all the dialogue, all the narratives that has demonized our faith and our tradition, all those things that has made it look like these are Satan's people. We need to address it quickly, you know, through dialogue, you know, religious conversation, all this kind of stuff, and events, things like that. I know we don't evangelize in our faith, and we don't do that. But since we live in this era where we need information, I feel like this is some of the work that we need to do. But also, when you go back to Nigeria, the custodian of this faith back home, they need to be up and doing. You cannot call yourself the vicar of Oduduwa and be going to other religious homes and undermining the faith that you represent. Somebody will need to have a talk with the people who are the custodian of this faith. And just like I said, Pope Francis would not go to a mosque and say that it feels like the Prophet Muhammad is superior to Jesus. It will not do that. It will show respect, but it will not lead the prayers in the mosque. And neither will the King of Saudi Arabia come to the Church of England and do anything apart from just show respect. So for me, for the Arole of Oduduwa to be leading songs in the church with the lyrics saying Jesus is my father, I have an issue. with that. If you know that you want to be a Christian, then be a Christian. That's great. But if you're going to be the Arole of Oduduwa, the high priest of the Ifa religion, you cannot do that.
Absolutely.
What you're saying is, I've heard a lot of dialogue about this throughout the years. I know, I mean, it's just posted a lot of times on different forums. I've seen many people back home comment about feeling as if many people in Nigeria have, expressed feeling uncomfortable, seeing the Oni, to be prostrating and things like that. I know, there's many pictures. This isn't a secret. Of course, we've seen things like this published and things like that with, different prostration and prayers and things of that nature. I believe it's His Imperial Majesty's intention to promote brotherhood and understanding with all the different faiths and things like this. We always have to be careful, of course, how we go about doing things, how we go about interacting in different spiritual communities. And there is a lot of challenge, of course, even within Ifa. There's places in Nigeria, where sometimes it's difficult for people to have their children go to school because people maybe see their child wearing some beads from Ifa or, Orisha, things like that, or Tutopon, different things like that. We don't want anything to do with that. And so there's challenges with that. And of course, we're translating the Bible into Yoruba. We know that there was great errors when they translated Eshu as Satan, because we know that Eshu doesn't have anything to do with that. It doesn't have anything to do with Satan, which is the Western belief. That's their own portrayal as the devil or something that is a negative entity that's out to create hardship for humanity. Yoruba people, we don't really have a concept of there being a devil like that. There's no word for that. And so we know that that's misrepresentation, right? And so there's been a lot of campaigning throughout Nigeria with many Babalawos, many people in the tradition who've been out campaigning and shirts and things that for years about Eshu not being Satan. So in my own opinion about things of this nature, I think education is the key. I think we need to spend a lot of time really educating people about what is Isheshe, what is Orisha, what is Ifa, and to also know that, as African people, we have our own dignity, we have our own grandeur to be able to hold our head high. There's no reason that we need to be doing things behind closed doors or feeling ashamed because we're not doing anything wrong. There's many other beliefs out there. If you're Muslim, they do their own rituals and things, or maybe they use some animals and things like that for their own sacrifice and prayers, and then they eat. The same thing happens inside of Judaism and things like that. But when we come into Ifa, into Isheshe, things sometimes, like you said, and I've seen this in Nigeria myself firsthand. At nighttime, sometimes maybe people go to see Babalawo behind closed doors. Oh, Baba, Boroboye, can you make this elbow for me? And things of that nature, because they want assistance with whatever's going on in their life, but they don't want to be identified as being around Isheshe. They don't want anybody to know that they're in Ifa. And so that's something that we have to work on. I think those things begin with having pride in ourselves and our own dignity of who we are as African people. We still are suffering from the from the trauma of what has happened when Western civilization has collided with African culture and African civilization as well in Nigeria. There was a documentary that came out. I forget the name of the documentary right off the top of my head. There's a documentary on Netflix. You might have seen it that was talking about how Benny. So you probably saw it. They talk about how Nigeria came to be called Nigeria and many things of that nature. And it was very enlightening.
Nigga area.
Yeah. You can't, things like that. And they talked about how other countries in Africa, in the continent of Africa, when the Europeans came there and gave them their own name, that when they later reclaimed and took over the government, they changed the name back to a name that gave honor and pride. And yet, for whatever reason, and I don't pretend to have an answer to knowing why, we're still using a name that was used as a way of demeaning us as a people. You're calling Nigeria the nigger area and things like that. That's demeaning. And so I'm saying.
Well, Kabiyesi, look at my surname.
Yeah, I understand. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
There's a story there.
Wow.
So my great granddad brought the Catholic faith to our village. So they baptized him and gave him Job, J-O-B.
Wow.
And that's the name he adopted. But the family name is called Kujeiro. Kujeiro means death, let this one be.
Wow.
Death, do not touch this one. So it's a powerful name. But in the last 3-4 generations, they've been that name and we bear Job. So my grandfather added MAC because it's a bit, it was just cool like that. He wanted to be a bit different. So yes. Mark meaning son of Job. Mark Job.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But, he walked, he and his friends, they walked for 3 days from Ijebu in southwest Nigeria, Ogun State, to Lagos State to go and meet the representative of the Pope to say, come to our community, I will give you land, come build a church in my community. Because he was a rich guy, he was a cocoa farmer, he exports cocoa, so he had a lot of cash. So because he brought the faith to the land, they really appreciated that and they baptized him and gave him that name, which he cherished. So again, you can see the colonial influence.
Absolutely.
Hence why I have this surname.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
I think, and it's what you just said speaks to, I've been speaking about this for some time, for years. I've been saying this, that, in the diaspora as well as in West Africa, we're still suffering from the trauma and the effects of colonialism. There's still
the legacy of colonialism.
Absolutely. It's absolutely a legacy. I mean, and even the documentary we were speaking about is there's still statues in Nigeria where you have those that were deeply involved in suppressing our people, the colonizers, that their statue is still in our homeland. And they've erected that. That's like the same as being here in America, where you have these Confederate generals, and you see their statues in our community, and you have people here in America that when I had this big argument, we don't want to get rid of this, we want to keep this, and so on and so forth. Those types of things affect how you see yourself. It affects your own image and your own pride. And when those things have been steeped in really been hammered into your consciousness for a long time, those types of things cause you to end up having, low self-esteem, it's self-hatred.
Yeah. A lot of self-loathing. If you look at but Kabiyesi, if you look at Nollywood, it's like a microcosm of the Nigerian society. If you look at their movies, every time there's an issue of good and bad, the Babalawo will represent evil and the pastor will represent good.
It's true.
The pastor wins 10 out of 10 times.
Every time. And you see it, and then you later see Babalawo go to become converted into Christianity, and he now goes to work and he leaves Ifa behind.
Absolutely. Or he dies. They will call Jesus from their living room. They will call blood of Jesus in their living room. The Babalawo will die in his shrine.
That's true.
And that's a movie made by Yoruba people.
Yes.
About their own faith and culture and tradition. So it's a big issue. So it's a learned behavior that we need to start to unlearn. But like you rightly said, Kabiyesi, is education. But from a journalistic standpoint, it will be a case of how do we do the education? Because a lot of people would not pick up books to read. So there's not a lot of time to read anything. But they do consume content, documentaries, films. They will watch that.
Yes.
So I feel like the creative industry might be a way into it. Do you know what I mean? A typical story.
I've been saying this for some time. What you're saying, it's like you were here in the room when we were talking about this years ago. I've been saying, film, media, things of this nature. We need to be able to have some things because everybody in Nigeria doesn't read or write, even amongst Babalawos and people inside of Isheshe. It's not everybody that is fluent in those things, and just across the board, everybody. But if you put something on TV where you can see it and these things can be discussed, there's so many things. I've gone to Nigeria and talked with people there about the history of things, and even our people there, some things they don't know. They don't know why they've been doing it that way. So, Baba, why do you do it like this? Why do you use so-and-so, so-and-so? Why are you using this word? Oh, no, Baba, it's just what we've always done. I said, no, Baba, but that can't be so. Because this word here, this thing is not indigenous to Yoruba. This is from the European people. This is from the British. And we've taken it and adopted it into our own culture. And we've made it our own. And we've done that with so many things that we can't tell what belongs to us and what were things that came from our oppressors. We can no longer tell because they've all become enmeshed in one another. You understand?
Yeah. So I was thinking, Kabiyesi, like using creative means to help the process as well. I mean, if I watch your life story on a Nollywood movie, it might be quite intriguing. You know, this American dude who just found faith and then went all the way. So lost his Jordans, threw away his chains and his baggy jeans, and then found his way to Oshogbo. That's an interesting Nollywood movie. It might inspire a couple of people to become curious about the faith.
I agree.
Because we're used to watching the story differently of how the Ifa is the dirt and then it gives way to Jesus and everything is good. And all of a sudden, here's this guy in America doing really good, but looking for something. And then he finds Olodumare or he finds Obatala and drops everything and his fancy life in New Jersey and makes his way to Oshogbo, walking around in flip-flops, you know, fetching water from the well, having his head shaved. Just interesting stuff like that.
It's like you're telling my story. It's true.
Yes, Kabiyesi, that would do something.
We have to change the narrative, and we need
to
it.
change
Stories. I actually think it's a cool thing.
I love it.
I would love to see something.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
I say, if I'll make it so, if I'll be Ashe to be able to do that, because I believe
that would be a hit on Netflix. That would be a hit on Netflix.
No kidding.
Absolutely. Because I haven't seen. I've had people ask me for years, Kabiyesi, how is it you came to Ifa? How is it you came to Isheshe? It surprised me a long time ago because I have, page and people from Nigeria would contact me to get into Ifa and things. And I said, why are you calling me here? I'm here in America. And what I said, because so many of our people, we have so much shame around this and whatever, and we don't want to feel that way about that. We want to see more of our story being told about who and what we are as a people, and have pride in that. And I believe that's part of my responsibility as well. Of course, being in this position here in America, we're uniquely placed to be able to tell these stories about even, going back home and connecting with the tradition of our forefathers and our ancestors and wanting to bring this wisdom back into not only in America, but also back in West Africa as well. I think we have a responsibility when you receive things like this to also give back, to give back home, not just to take and, people do this, they go gobbling and taking these things and they take it back home and they don't give anything to support the community, to let people to be raised up and to be able to see themselves in a good light. I think something like this would allow for more people in West Africa and people here to be able to see the pride in themselves and say, wow, this is something that belongs to us and our own son. That, that's one of my names that one of the Kabiyesis gave me was Omowale. The son is returned home. So that's one of my names. So
Omowale, our son has come home. That's a powerful name.
What you're saying is you're speaking the truth. You're saying what part of my spiritual mission has been told to me.
This is the type of thing that both Roland and Baba Faseye are talking about. This movie just recently came out through Bollywood called Yahoo Babalawo. It created an outrage among traditionalist Babalawos and in Nigeria because the argument was how would it feel if this title was Yahoo Imam or Yahoo Rabbi or Yahoo Priest or Yahoo pastor or whatever you want to use as a term. But this is, in Spanish we say there is no worse splinter than the one that comes from the same wood. And you have to do a lot of work in terms of the mainstream of society. One of the biggest problems that Nigeria has had in terms of Ifá-Òrìsà is that it has remained at the margins of society. And because its strength and its longevity, because of its oral traditions, has actually been a cause for its demise and its weakening in the mainstream and in other countries and in its own nation, because it's always marginalized. And that is something that the only way you can combat it is that, well, I said, we don't, in Ifá, we're not evangelists. We don't go around, basically saying convert, 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 convert. But what we can do through shows like we're doing now, through education, through initiate, through different means, is to speak the truth and to educate. It is through education and the ability to communicate and to convey a cohesive message which is grounded in history, which is grounded in reality, not in a make believe world that unfortunately a lot of practitioners believe that what we practice it lives in. And the moment that they step out of their homes, the moment that they step out of their temples, they adopt a mantle of, as we said, colonialism, a mantle of slavery, mental slavery, and a denial of their own faith. I cannot tell you how many practitioners I see that hide their eleki, they hide their ides. We talked about earlier, in Nigeria, in Yoruba, in many schools, when the kids go to school, being told you can't come into the school because you have an ide of Ifa, or you have an ide of Orisha, or you have a bead in their own country, leading to El Buibum and his sons to actually even do a video campaign saying, shame on you, that in your land, in the land of the Orisha, in the land of the Orunmila, in the land of your ancestors, that a foreign belief system, Christianity, which is a colonial-based belief system, like Islam is, that basically imposes its belief system on indigenous belief systems. How dare you discriminate against your own people and your own belief? That is the root of the problem. And quite often, that's why we've tried through education, through setting an example, by showing that following Orisha does not make you obsolete. By following Orisha does not make you backwards. By following Orisha does not make you superstitious. No. But to bring out the fact that Ifa, Orisha, is a spiritual science, that it represents the wisdom of Olodumare and the expression and the collective wisdom of our ancestors through generations. No matter what the color, no matter what the tradition, that is the message that we have to convey, and we have to stop. One of the things is the infighting that often occurs between traditionalists, between diaspora, between inside the traditionalists of different factions or groups, because in division there is weakness, right?
Absolutely.
We say Ifa, Ogunamasa, and union is strength, yet we don't practice it. We are more enthralled by showcasing or holding up a builder. We have the truth. We have the power. We have it, rather than reaching out as a community, as a collective, to say we have to defend the future of our children. We have to defend the future of our communities. We have to have a voice. If you have no voice, you have no power. And if you have no power, these belief systems are always hanging by a thread.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What I was going to say, not Teresa.
So what I was going to lead to was, of course, like our podcast, and reaching out to people of different faiths, but also really representing Ifa through our ancestors And I mean, well, look at John Jérôme and I. We're white people, and here we are practicing an African spiritual religious belief system. And this is something that I think is very important, and it should be, I would say it should be broadcast into Africa. That's part of that education. I think that that's important. I love your idea, Bolin, of doing a movie and doing something like that would just sort of, that grabs people's interest. But I think everyday simple things like a podcast like this, which leads me to what you yourself has done, is actually, if I'm not mistaken, purchased your own radio station. You are a BBC journalist.
Yes, I created my own station.
Absolutely. Now, this is something that, is a perfect venue for you to be able to not just broadcast to the UK, okay, but is there some sort of way that this could be brought into Africa? Like our show and also you syndicating this. Could something like that be, established, like a link, so that, people can sit down on a Friday, much like what we're doing here now, and really learn about the Orisha tradition? What do you think?
110%. That's already on the works. The moment the radio became live, because it's online and it has an app, and I realized that I can reach the entire world. The first thing I did was got in touch with Baba Jérôme to say, I want Ifa content on my radio. This is my stuff. And I want Ifa content on it. And then he told me about Ancestral Eyes to say, you can syndicate our program. Until we've got over 30 episodes already done. So right now I've recorded 2 of your episodes, the past shows. I've recorded 2 because I want to make it like a concise 45 minutes. So I have to put my producer hat on and listen and edit it appropriately, and then just have the entire series and promote it on social media so that people can come to the station every Friday and listen. But also it can be taken on the road. We can take this show on the road. And once it's established, we could create events. I could do interviews as a presenter or find somebody to present the program. Interview Kabiyesi Ifagbemi, interview yourself, Teresa, interview John Jérôme, just raising issues. There's so many topics, so many topics, uncountable topics about this faith that we can have a chat about. Prior before I joined the BBC, I used to do a program with the European Union, and it's called Interreligious Dialogue. And I remember there was a scenario in Norway. It was a scenario in Norway. There's a hijabi young woman of Moroccan heritage, but she lives in France. And so they had this program that we call the fishbowl. You see, and it was just strange. So they gave us a topic, and you have to discuss it. That it was supposed to be about being inclusive, inclusive. Black, gay,
right,
straight, disabled, that type of stuff. And so the sentence was, if you are religious, you cannot be inclusive. So if you get your moral indoctrination from a Bible or Quran, like for example, you cannot be totally inclusive, because the words are very clear within these 2 books, at least, about homosexuality, as an example. And I remember that it created quite a debate. But because the house rules were clear, no disrespect, no disrespecting of the religion, but we need to know that we're going to have difficult conversations amongst ourselves. So we're not going to get touchy, or uppity about anything, but we need to have this chat. And so it was quite an interesting chat to say, there were lesbians within this grouping. They were gay people because it was supposed to be an inclusive project. So people were selected. I came in to take the black box. There's about 2 or 3 of us that were black. So you could tell that this is the most inclusive gathering. We had a couple of disabled people also, people with learning disabilities. So it was quite a grouping. And so the people that were, gay within the forum also had the chance to say, right, do you accept me? And I remember this young lady saying, I accept you, even though I don't approve of your lifestyle. So, like playing with words. And she's like, what do you mean approve? Why do you need to approve of who I am? This is who I am. And she's like, I love you, I respect you, but this is what the book says. This is what the book says. And these are the words of the prophet. I hold this dear to my heart. So you could see that it was a very difficult situation, but because this conversation needed to be had, we had it. People moved grounds a bit, people held their grounds, but we made sure that the communication was clear from the onset. Like, guys, we are going to have difficult conversation, but please, we are all going to remain friends. We're going to be very respectful when we talk. Nobody should be offended, please. We're trying to learn, and we're all trying to grow together. I thought it was a success. There was a lot of tension. Some people cried, but I felt like it was a conversation that needed to be had. None of this hiding behind rhetorics. It was like, you cannot say you're inclusive when you refuse to accept somebody's lifestyle. So I feel like I digress. So back to us, we also need to have that conversation. I personally have had a journey, in my family. So I was born into a very Catholic home. So my uncle's an Archbishop Emeritus, So it's a huge Catholic family. I've got cousins who are priests. I've got cousins who are monks. I've got siblings who are Pentecostal pastors.
Wow.
So that's the kind of home I come from. And I walk around with these beads and this, and my siblings are not exactly chuffed. So when I first got it, I was hiding it. I would hide it. And when I go to see my mother was the first president. Well, she's still alive. She's the first president of the Catholic Women Organization of the diocese. Catholic Women Organization. She's the president of the diocese, and her son is walking around with an Obatala beads. That's a big issue. So whenever I go to see her, I wear long sleeve shirt to cover my beads. And then one day I just pulled it back, and then she was like, "What's this?" And I said, "That's my Obatala beads. That's what that is." And then slowly but surely, as I continue to find confidence in my faith, because it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to live it. And then as soon as I started to grow and have confidence, in the Orishas, in the things that I profess, and I said to my brother, I said, "Do you feel any bad spirit in me right now? You are stood in front of me. You're the one that's a Pentecostal. Do you feel, if I was Satan right now, or I had Satan vibes, you should feel it." Like the Exorcist movie. We grew up watching the Exorcist movie. We saw what happened when evil and good were in the same building. Evil crashed through the window or something. I said, "Come on. Do you not feel like your brother is still right here in front of you? Do you not feel love radiating between the two of us? So how can you, even for 1 second, assume that I have foul spirit within me? I have the Spirit of God in me via the traditional religion of our ancestors. You be a Pentecostal all you want. This is who I am. I have not changed. And the spirit that I have is the spirit of good." And so we just carried on relating. I know, sometimes they want me to say, "Oh, I've given my life to Jesus," all that kind of stuff. I know that's what they want in their heart. And I understand, but there's only so much explanation you can give. I traveled the world. I went to the Vatican. I went to I went on, like the journey of Paul. I went to Ephesus. I went to Thessaloniki. I went to Corinth. Just enjoying, just seeing stuff. I'm like, oh wow, this is where Paul came. Oh yeah, this is the part where Paul picked up a snake and shook it, and it fell into the fire. Oh wow, so this is Malta. All right, this is where the shipwreck happened. So and it's like just interesting to see that everybody is doing their own thing. Whenever I go to Europe, I see huge churches, huge cathedrals. That's their thing. That's what they do. And I feel like when I'm in Africa, I want to see my Ifa temple, and I want to see my religion flourishing. I don't want a situation whereby I'm extending what I've seen in Rome and Greece, and then they're bringing it back to my community, and then my tradition has just vanished. I'm sorry, I digress.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that's very important. I think it's me, myself, looking back at my ancestral roots, and I'm looking back at my Slavic pagan roots. This is pre-Christian too. It's important to know these things because, I know the Catholic within our family and how we celebrate it is different from other Catholics. But what is it? What makes it different? It's something that we have inherited from our own ancestors. And this is important. And I think that we should all have that ability to be able to tap into our ancestral worship and our ancestors and not feel ashamed of that, regardless, because we've got caught up in popular Abrahamic religions. All of us have. And we've all come from that. I mean, I know, I was baptized as a Catholic myself. And at a young age, I decided to walk away from it because I just thought, I'm tired as a woman being looked upon, even as a young child. What are my life goals? Oh, great. I get to be only a mother, and that's it. There is nothing else in between. Well, what about me going out and discovering myself? My religion doesn't give me that ability. Yet there's all these different gods and deities within my own, Slavic background that expresses that, And I know that within Ifa, I mean, we have these wonderful Orishas, these strong females. And this is important. I think it's important for all of us to be able to tap into our ancestral roots and allow our spiritual journeys to begin from something that lies deep within ourselves. And I think we need to do that, and I think, it's it kind of hurts to hear this, that back in Yoruba, the Yoruban people have embraced more of the Abrahamic religions. And I think it's important to turn that around. It's starting. It really is starting. And this is something that, Baba Faseye has that wonderful opportunity to be able to do that. It makes me stop and think.
For years is what you're saying. It's exactly, that's part of what we've been having a problem with. I mean, and not to interrupt you, because what you're saying, it speaks to exactly part of my experience. The first time I went to Nigeria, and I think myself, like many other African Americans, we expect and we hear about, Ifa, Orisha, Isheshe, we're going to Nigeria, we're going to the motherland, the land of our ancestors, to go and to see how we do worship and things like that. And so we're expecting to get to Nigeria, and it's going to be like spiritual Wakanda. We're expecting to be in Wakanda now. And then we see this exactly, we see this futuristic, African sci-fi genre, these Babalawos and Risha priests with these out, and we're expecting to see this. And then instead, the first thing we see when we come, we get at the airport and we get out and we see these big banners for the skin bleaching cream and things like this. Oh, if you just look more lighter, if you don't look so black, then, your life will be better, and things like, and those types of things were some of the first things that I saw. And I said, wow, these are things that we work really hard here particularly African Americans, we're very much conscious about what's happened to us, the trauma of transatlantic slavery and things like that. And so we're expecting we're going to come back home to Nigeria with woke Africans, and everybody's woke. We're all on the same page. We are, oh yes, brother, welcome. You know, you're home. Let's have these discussions. Let's talk about this. And instead, we find that those things are not being discussed. That's not the case at all. And it's not to say that, you know, learning and doing different things is important, but these are conversations that we need to be having of is why is that the depiction of beauty? And there's so many people, you may see this Yoruba woman or this man that you see older pictures of them and they were black. And then you see them now and you see their skin, it's almost kind of like glowing. It's yellowish because they've done so much of this skin bleach. And this is what's happened of this disease that they put into our minds to think that we're less than, that if you just be like this, if you just look like that, your life can be better and you can have this, you can have that, and so on and so forth. And so speaking for myself, that was a major disappointment. I come out, I see this, and I had to come back home and I had to take a lot of time to really process this. Like, wow, I'm expecting that we're going to be here having these discussions, talking about all these things that have happened to us as African peoples, you know, sharing our experiences, catching up on news, these different things, and talking about what does it mean. I mean, we hear about this when we talk about Orunmila, the black man of Bigidi Hill. Like all the Orishas are telling us who they are. They're telling us, I'm the black man of Bigidi, I am the black woman of this place. They're identifying themselves as such, not metaphorically speaking. They're saying, this is who I am. And yet, in our own culture back home, we have this shame about what it means to be this, what it means to be black, what it means to be in this vessel. And, you know, even when it comes down to, you know, taking and putting and, you know, this, you know, and I hate to say it, but, you know, we see so many of our sisters with, you know, different hair weaves and things that we put into our hair, and we don't realize that meanwhile, many of these things that our sisters are weaving into their head is things that has been used from even East Indian people and things like that. They use as their eba. They use it as their own sacrifice. So they're getting rid of their own Ibi, their own Oshogbo, removing their own.
You're attaching it to yours.
You're attaching it to your own Ori, your Eleda.
And then you start doing, that.
Right, and now you're doing the.
Have you seen the sisters do that?
You know, and it's not to put anybody to make a mockery, but just saying this is the reality of what we're dealing with. Like this is like self-hexing. You know, the city like Oshemedi talks about self-hexing. So when we're doing things like that and you're praying to your Odi, what you're doing, what you're saying about yourself. What's the inner dialogue? What's the inner conversation that you're having? You're praying and asking for these good things, but at the same time, you're taking something that belongs to you and you're making it your own. And then we're wondering why you're having all these issues and things that's going on in your life. And everything that you do is some form of ritual, whether it's conscious or not. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you make your breakfast, whatever. It's some form of ritual that we're doing, but we don't think about it consciously. We just go about our day-to-day life oblivious to what's going on, and we don't realize the narrative that we're telling ourselves. Are you really uplifting yourself as a person, or are you doing things that are moving you off course from what you need to be doing, from what the best is? And these are conversations that I can't tell you how many times I've been to Nigeria and tried to sit down. Baba, can we talk about, you know, they don't always like to talk about these things. You know, there's certain things everybody doesn't want to always. The elephant in the room is just Baba. You know, let's move on from that. Let's talk about something else. You know, but these conversations are important because we can't move forward until we really take a close examination of who and what we are as a people and how we've been impacted in every single aspect. You know, there's so many things, even down to our governance in the country of Nigeria and things like that. So much of the government, you see the judges and the magistrates, they're wearing an English wig on their head. You see different crowns, the Ade, that many chiefs in Saudi Ifa wear. It's a representation of a wig, of an English wig. And we say, but this is traditional. We're doing it, but that's not traditional because none of our people look like that. But we're holding on to these things because we're not taking a close exam. And this is what happens when you're talking about trauma. When people have gone through this level of trauma, you just want to get to the other end of the story and not have to look at what's really hurting, because working through that wounding, takes time and energy, and you have to consciously work at it. And we just want to get to the end of the story and look at what's really going on and how did we get to this place? Why are we here? I go to the airport, I'm bringing things from Orisha and whatever at the airport, and what's this? What's this? What's this Ifa? Whatever. We want to throw these things away. This is our own heritage. This is our own culture. And these are things that even for me, it's hard to see when you see people, and of course, Ifa, we welcome anybody. People who aren't even African have more love, more respect for our own tradition, and they want to come in and get this and practice this, and yet our own people, we hold it in such low regard. And I think it's like Bolan said, we have to have places, temples, places that we go where we feel good about where it's not just off in a back alley, off in some Babalawo's garage, off in some place secretly where he's doing his Ifa and whatever. We need places where we can gather and worship. But like, Jean Jérôme said, we have to be able to everybody be at the table, even in Ifa. Everybody needs to be able to have a conversation with each other, whether we're different or doing different things ritually in a different way. We've got to be able to have some connection because we need a common rallying place where we can come together to gather, and that people can see this being lifted up. I haven't seen it. There's a few places, Ile Ife, a few other places. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in Nigeria, but I've seen very few places where you don't see these beautiful temples that have been ornate and put together very well, where people are coming together and worship. There are some, but still to this day, a lot of what we see is still kind of very quiet. It's in the bush, or whatever. If you're Babalawo and you come from Oyo and you go into the city in Lagos, the people see the beat, they won't even talk to the person. This guy's country, he's a country Babalawo. We don't need to talk to him, whatever. There's so much of this going on. We have to really start having these honest conversations behind how we got to where we're at and what do we do going forward. How do we move forward and heal through these particular things? And it only happens by naming it. Ifa says in Ikalfun, Ifa says you don't call something red black, you don't call something black red. So you don't misrepresent something to be something that it's not. You have to represent things in its true light of what it really is. That means even if you know something is wrong, you don't say, oh no, it's really okay because of this. And you don't say that something is good and say it's bad. Stuff we do reading when Ifa, we say, don't speak Ire and let it be Eb. Don't speak Eb and let it be Ire. We don't want to have you saying this is the truth and it's not. And we don't want something that's not the truth to actually be the truth, because then that means that you're misled. That we can't make good decisions behind what we need to do. So we do have to talk about these things, and we have to name it. If something is not right, we have to name it. We have to bring it out, and then we have to come up with some concrete solutions behind what we can do to advance things and move forward, going from there.
Okay, but Kabiyesi, there's something I wanted to also allude to while you're on that topic. Yes, because I feel like we also have to do our homework from within.
Of course.
So in my experience, one of the reasons why the faith has so much bad press is ritual killing.
Yeah.
Ritual murder.
Yes.
I cannot tell you how many times Babalawos in Nigeria, in Southwest Nigeria, in my community where I come from, I cannot tell you how many episodes we've seen in the news, some that I've even reported on the BBC. Ritual killing, harvesting body parts, people's children's heads chopped off.
Yes.
Crazy, grim, vile crime. And the police will parade them with handcuffs in their hand and in their legs and paraphernalia akin to the Ifa religion. So they will literally sack their temple, and by the time they trash it, there will be human remains. There will be shallow graves, all sorts of craziness, like literally stuff from hell. And so they associate that to the religion because these are imposters and these are not imams. So by the time they say, what is your name? In his handcuff, you say, I am Babalawo XYZ. And that's a big problem. So I spoke to my Babalawo at the time when I just came into the faith. And I said, well, I have a problem. I have a problem because I'm seeing this. It's not like they told me. I've seen scenarios where people have been caught. They've led them. Maybe they were driving. They got stopped by the police. They open the boot. They see a severed head of a child. And then all body parts of an albino. And then they put them in handcuffs after beating the living hell out of them. So then you see this guy with swollen face and swollen mouth. And then they say, oh, I'm Babalawo XYZ. So what happened? Oh, I'm trying to help them do a charm for prosperity. So then I said to my Babalawo, like, well, what the hell is this? You know? And then he was trying to say to me, like, there's Onishegun, you know, like medicine men. There's Babalawo, priests. So, and then I said, right, within this faith, we need to do some house cleaning. Because it's not enough for you to say to me, oh, those are Onisheguns. We are Babalawos. We are different. No. It's like with Islam, when people say, no, those aren't Muslims. Those are terrorists. Islam is a religion of peace. I said, well, he is reading the same Quran, isn't it? You guys need to have that conversation within the faith. Let those who are spoiling the name of the faith, doing terrorist activity, you need to expose them for us. You know, don't accuse us of Islamophobia when we say, oh, this happened, that happened. You know, please help us understand why these people aren't Muslims, because they are terrorists, where the faith is different. Please, you need to educate us. So I was saying that to my Babalawo to say, well, we need to understand. You can't just tell me now, because the guys who listen to the news, they don't know the difference. So how do we then, within this faith, for those who are priests, you know, and kings like yourself, how do we then make sure that we clean up this community of, you know, of priests, of Ifa priests, that we don't want a situation whereby every now and again the police will burst somebody's temple, they will sack it, you know, they will literally pick Orisha effigies and just throw them out. You could see stuff on the ground that could probably represent a shoe or something. You could tell, like, that's what that is. They literally kick it because in the process of all of that, they found somebody's severed head or body parts and then undermine the whole process. So I'm seeing things like this and I'm discombobulated. So hence that Yahoo Babalawo concept, that's the kind of stuff that inspired those kind of movies. Because in real time, a lot of people, you know, have dodgy characters who will say to them, oh, I'm a Babalawo, I'm going to sort you out, and then fleece them of their cash. And that's why that coinage was made. And there's a guy called Naira Marley. He did a song, you know, Naira Yahoo ni Babalawo, and everybody's a thief. Even the Babalawo is a Yahoo, you know, like a fraudster. So I feel like as we try to get everything right, there's also some house cleaning that needs to be done within the faith. You know, that people, maybe some registration, maybe some, I don't know, maybe some vetting process, so that just anybody can just say, oh, I'm a Babalawo, and then start charging people cash. You know, I've had stories about people going to meet a Babalawo to say they have a problem, and then the next thing they say that, oh, he tried to rape me. You know, you heard. So this is what happened when people are trying to say to me, dude, Don't worry, you're about to find out. Right now, it's plain sailing. You're having fun. Don't worry. You'll get to a point where your eyes are going to open. So people have said that to me. And then they'll give me instances of what happened to them. You know, a female spoke about what somebody nearly raped her, blah, blah, blah.
Usually, when I reply, like your point is very well taken. In any belief system or any organized faith or professional body, etc., there has to be governance. But governance comes from, I mean, we have in our within Ifa, Ikafun, 16 commandments or essentially guidelines in terms of ethical conduct, which in prison all Babalawo should adhere to. But what I find in those particular examples that it's interesting that those are used, within Nigeria and all that. I mean, if we open up that Pandora's box and we go into every other belief system and all that, and we look at the atrocities committed by the Catholic Church during the Spanish Inquisition, atrocities committed by the church and complicitness to the kingdoms of Europe in terms of raping, pillaging, and taking the lands of the First Nations in the world. If we open that and we look at young woman mutilation of their female genitalia within Islam, or if we look at the ritual marriage of girls that barely are 8 years old, have barely even had their period, and is an accepted practice of the belief system. Absolutely. If we look at the institutional rape and abuse of young boys with the Catholic Church, if we look at the systematic pillaging, ripping off, and raping of women within pastoral evangelical churches, which is reported across the world. If we open up that, if somebody were to say to me for the Ifa faith, or if we really want to take it to the next level, if we talk about whether it be Christian, whether it be white, whether it be Islamic, people in the name, as you mentioned earlier, in the name of Allah or in the name of Christ or in the name of whatever the hell they concoct, blowing themselves up or creating mass murder in the name of a God or a belief. We go back to the essential problem that it is humanity, the human beings, which are the problem, not so much the belief system. And I would challenge and I've had this conversation many times before. When was the last time you saw Babalawo strap a bunch of bombs to their vest and go into a church or a synagogue or a mosque and blow themselves up in the name of Olodumare? So we have to be careful. And I say to these people, especially white or within the different indigenous, I don't care what color, creed, sexual, if you come at me with that, you have to be very careful what you say, because in Spanish we say, if you're going to throw stones at the roof of your neighbor, you have to be very careful that yours is not made of glass. Right? So I think that self-regulation and best standards and good governance and all that is good in any situation. But I would argue that that is not the reason why the Ifa or any belief system, indigenous belief system like Ifá-Òrìsà, Vodou, Nkisi, and all that have been maligned. Quite the contrary. Those systems, and even if we look at Cuba, one of the first things that Fidel Castro did when he took power was he outlawed the belief systems of Orisha, Nkisi. He outlawed the Masons. He outlawed every religious group. Why? Not because they were killing people, not because they were having misconduct, but because they represented a real threat to him being able to have absolute power over the Cuban people, and a threat to his doctrine of communism and socialismo o muerte, You were either a socialist who believed only in the communist situation, or it was death. And he's proven that, because thousands, hundreds of thousands of Cubans have died trying to exit that island for over 60 years in that type of scenario. Now we transpose to Africa. We have transposed to Nigeria. Okay? What was the first thing that the British needed to do? They needed to break the spirit of the indigenous population. How do you break the spirit of any indigenous population? Is you malign, you demean, and you ridicule, and you suppress their belief system. Because if you do that, and on top of that, you make them kiss the boots of your cross, of your priests, and everything else, you've won. You've won without firing a shot.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
That's one. Let us not forget the second greatest evil in any belief system, which is greed and money. 80% of the people that have converted to the belief system in Africa has nothing to do with belief, or they believe that Christ exists or anything else. Bullshit. The main reason is money. Because if you open up a church, you get money. If you convert your population, you get money. If you open up a mosque, you get money. Let's not forget that it's because of this, and power, and greed, and jealousy, that people switch religions, and have switched religions mostly in West Africa. We had a guest, Utu witch doctor, white Scottish man, a credible journey, goes to Mozambique, is adopted pretty much because of his drumming and I hope Utu's listening, in a town. What does the town witch doctor, using the term, that's the term used, or Onishegun, whatever you want to call it, what does he do? He says to Utu, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to pass on my knowledge of my tradition. You know why? Not because he was dying, not because of it, but because he was opening up a church. And why was he opening up a church? Because he believed in Christ. He believed in life everlasting. Bullshit. Because he believed in this. So I say to those people, right? Be very careful what you say from your mouth. Because if we really peel the layers of the bullshit and the lies, no one of those other belief systems or people have the moral authority to say anything. But you need to have, I won't say it because we're on a show live, you need to have what you need to have. And if you really believe in what you believe, to stand up and say, you are wrong, this is incorrect, this and this and this and this and this and this and this. If you close your mouth and you bow, you're done.
No, true enough.
And I've spoken to priests, I've spoken like you have no idea. And Teresa is a witness sometimes. I'm very mild-mannered, but somebody pokes or something about Ifa, or talks about something which is unjust or improper, something about Ifa, I have no contemplation, and I call a spade a spade. The biggest problem is you have to know to defend yourself. In any situation, if you practice Ifa-Òrìsà, it is not enough to divine. It is not enough to do Ebo. You have to do the work. And the work is partly standing up for the belief system, and no matter who's in front of you. And right is right and wrong is wrong. Because if you don't, what do you believe? You said at the beginning, you quoted the Oni. I have every respect for Oni as a spiritual majesty and as a priest king. But as you yourself said, the optics of bowing or going into a temple and saying, "Hail, Jesus is my father." Why? Why? So those are and it doesn't matter the color of your skin. Because if you see my ancestry DNA, I've got like I don't know how many countries. 11% of my DNA is from Africa, 2% from Nigeria, 2% from Togo, 6% from Congo, and 1% from Cote d'Ivoire. But in this incarnation, Olodumare made me born in France, of a Cuban mother, and with white skin. But I defend my belief system, even when it's not convenient. And that's what I find. Many times we believe, we're Shango, Olodumare, but when we're challenged, when we're put in front of a situation, we cover, we can't do that. Even if it hurts, even if it's our own family, even if it's the president of the United States or whoever it is. And if people see that you stand up, if people see in these shows that we speak the truth, that we base our knowledge and on our discourse based on knowledge, based on the ancestral knowledge. We look at an example. How many shows have we had on Ancestral Eyes about neo-pagan beliefs? Here you have mainly white, Anglo-Saxon, white, trying to rescue, and European white, whether it be Slavic, Irish, Norse, you name it, desperately clamoring to resurrect something. In England, the 1800s, the 1900s, the desperation to try to refine and rekindle ancient traditions and everything else. And now everything is, pagan this, pagan that. Okay, we respect. I applaud that for the effort to resurrect. But how do you explain a tradition like Ifá-Òrìsà, Nkisi, Vodun from all of Africa, where you have the secrets, you have the oral traditions, you have the unbroken knowledge and wisdom, and we deny it, or we hide it, or we cower?
Good
and
point.
there are many examples of that. We could go on and on. Many examples.
I think part of it, what you said though, for why this happens in West Africa, is that the truth is that it's not an unbroken line of tradition. It was interrupted when we had all these different things that came in. What Bolan was saying is true. I've seen that, in terms of human sacrifice. I mean, we've spoken about this many times. I think what you said about the money is definitely a big piece of it. People do money rituals and things like that in Nigeria, and they take somebody off into the bush and snuff the guy out in the bush and load him up with a bunch of marijuana and some opium, whatever. Person doesn't even know that they're literally about to be the Ebo, that they're going to be the sacrifice, right? And that happens a lot. I mean, unfortunately. I mean, yes, everybody says, it's Imeji, Ifa, Orunmila outlawed human sacrifice or whatever. Yes, the Odu does say that. That doesn't mean that people stop doing it, or that it's not as common as it is. Part of this is our association with things like death and sacrifice and whatever. A lot of our association with these things is significantly out of balance. And particularly, like if we look at West African Yoruba people in Ifa, just using Ifa as an example. A lot of the things when you've observed the Oshe calendar and times of prayer and reverence of different deities and whatever. So if it's worshiping Shango, whatever, then on that day, okay, so what are we going to feed Shango? So a lot of the Yoruba people there who are in Isheshe, your meal for the day is dictated by which deity you're venerating. So if it's Shango, if you have the means, you'll sacrifice rooster, maybe turtle. If you have a little more influence, maybe you might sacrifice Agbo, ram, or whatever you have the capacity, financially to be able to do. And so then the meal will be dictated, based upon that. And so a lot of the people and a lot of, the people back home, things were in the old days. And the way it was set was to follow the calendar. You're looking at the times of seasons and harvest of when all this is happening. Okay, we know this is going to be the yam harvest. So we're going to have these types of foods and this type of things that we're going to be bringing out of the earth at this time. So our diet's going to be, based upon that. It's a very agrarian, lifestyle at that time. And then now you move into the 21st century where you have people call from America, people call from around the world, oh, Baba, I need this ebo, this and that and the other. So now we're sacrificing and killing, and the amount of sacrifice has gone up, because the truth is that the people back home were in Isheshe, they're not sacrificing nearly to that degree for themselves, because no one has the means to sacrifice a ram every day. But they call a person on the phone, oh, Ifa says so-and-so, so, oh, Shango's asking for ram, he's asking for this, he's asking for that. Why? Because it's dinner. I know I got this guy from the UK, this guy from America, he's got some money, and I'm hungry. So, these things happen, is what I'm saying, is that when, and I'm not saying this to disparage anyone, I'm just simply saying that when we're trying to figure out how we're going to eat, figure out our means for getting to the next place and whatever, that now begins to shape, how we see things, because even sacrifice should be done from a place of reverence. Not that you're just killing and killing and killing, but when you spend so much time doing that, you lose you lose that veil of respect for life. And so now it goes from animal to now human. Oh, this person's disposable too, right? There's no problem for him. This guy, he's nothing, he's a bum on the street. Nobody cares about him. He's a lunatic anyway. No one's going to miss this guy if we just pick this guy up, throw him in the back of the truck, and take him out, and that's a wrap. So a lot of this, what I'm saying is we have to address our association with even with these things around ebo and sacrifice. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, but there's always been a time and a place for it. It's not just been going and just massively slaughtering tons and tons and tons. You only took what you needed to eat. But now these things have changed, and so now this ebo is not enough. So now we need more ashe to do this. We need this to do that. And we see human sacrifice happening around the world. When you hear on TV that this black man was killed by these police and they sat on his neck and killed him while he was crying out for his mother, that's ebo. And you hear about these soldiers off in this part of the world that were killed in this war, that's ebo, because anytime you're taking human life, who's gaining the power? Somebody's getting the power from this massive loss, this massive killing of human beings. Unfortunately, this is part of what's happening. And so that's why I keep, I always go back to saying we have to look at what we've been doing. We have to ask these questions of why. Unfortunately, we just, it's frowned upon a lot of times, at least in Isha and in a lot of traditions. It's not always encouraged to ask questions. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Or whatever. And I'm just saying we have to have a certain respect and reverence for life. What I don't like is when I see on Facebook and I see Babalawo sacrificing these animals and whatever and making a show of it on Facebook, on TV, for everybody to see on video. Oh, here we are. We're going to kill this goat. Oh, we're going to sacrifice this dog. We don't need to be doing things like that. We need to respect ourselves. That's not something you put on as a show for people to be seeing and with things like that, because now you're making it reverence. You're making it into entertainment. For people to see, watch me, I'm doing this, and so on and so forth. Those types of things is not good. It's not good to be showing that type of thing. Everybody doesn't need to see that. It's not everything that we need to be doing ebo like that. Ebo starts with character. Because ebo was a deity that Ifa says in Ejobe, that ebo was something that Orunmila created. That, in other words, a deity, a spirit to be able to carry our prayers from earth to heaven, right? From Aye to Ogun. And that's why we use ebo. So we have to have a proper understanding about what these things are. It's not just about going and killing a chicken. It's not about killing this rooster or whatever. It's not about, obviously, human sacrifice, which those things are abomination. It's about the character of a person. Before you go off and run to find this animal, this rooster, whatever, you need to kill the rooster or whatever this is inside of you. Because otherwise, that means all these things were a waste. But when you make it about money and about getting rich and getting that, and you're promising people all these things and whatever else, and you don't respect yourself, then now it's just everybody's disposable. Oh, it doesn't matter if I do this. It doesn't matter if I do it. We see this even here in America. You see people sacrificing all these animals and whatever, and they just throw them in the garbage can. You're just out here sacrificing, and we see this on TV. You see this in the news. This person took and dumped all these animals in a dumpster, and people are like, oh my God, this and that and the other. Like, we need to defend the faith. We need to defend what we're doing. but we also have to be accountable and tell the truth and say, because otherwise it makes the sacrifice that those who made for us to practice this religion, it makes their sacrifice for nothing. When we're saying, oh, everything we sacrifice, we eat. But meanwhile, you killed this pig and you threw it off in the bush. Or you threw it off into your garbage can in a community where everybody lives, and you polluted the entire community. We're exposing this waste.
Absolutely.
We can't say that we're doing things in a certain way, but meanwhile, we're not holding ourselves accountable to that. We should only be taking what you absolutely need in order to live, to take care of your family, to eat, and things like that. If you don't need that, then why do the deities need that? Why does Shango need 15 rams? Who's going to eat 15 rams? Because all these things with Ebo was about sacrificing and also feeding the community. It's about giving back, uplifting, raising up your people. Otherwise, what you're doing is, like Bolan said, it's just murder. You're just killing. And it certainly should never be people. Never. But yes, unfortunately, we do see that. You see people out taking out to the bush and this and that. But beyond even killing people, there's also killing people's character, assassinating their character, coming on Facebook. Oh, I don't like this person. Oh, he's rubbish. This person's not this person's not that. Like, you're destroying if you destroy somebody else's gainful livelihood, if you destroy somebody else's ability to provide for their family, it's no different than putting a knife to that person's neck because you've already killed them. So we have to look at this on multiple levels beyond just talking about just that one aspect of what we see with that happening. There has to be accountability, but it's very difficult to do that. I've been asking this for years. What can be done to have an accountability in West Africa so that we know who's who and whatever? And unfortunately, what I've seen is that it's largely a popularity contest. It's whether or not somebody likes this person. I don't like him. I don't like this person. I don't like her or whatever else. So then whether or not that person is the competent priest or priestess, we're just sitting back here and we're disrespecting people just because of differences of opinion. Because we don't like this person or whatever. I don't like the way this guy combs his hair. I don't like the way this woman wears her shoes and whatever. So they're not a real priest. And so we have to look at these things honestly. This question about how we deal with this, I think it's a multi-tiered approach behind how we can deal with this. I think what Jean Jérôme said, I think part of it is self-governance. Unfortunately, it's a challenge. If we sit back here and put a rubber stamp and say everybody has to meet this criteria, then who's the person in charge? Who gets to set the standard? Who gets to say
who becomes Pope? Who becomes Pope and
that's been one of the biggest, sort of back and forth between, the Afro-Cuban and the African traditional, because the Afro-Cuban, there's a strong penchant that is, sort of in principle, basic principles or tenets of the Afro-Cuban practice are sort of discussed and adhered to through the Asociación Cultural Yoruba de Cuba, right? Which is essentially a certification body and also a body that looks at, elements of practice and all that, makes, certain declarations in terms of best practice. Some people follow it, some people don't. Some I agree with, some I don't, right? But at least there was an attempt within the Afro-Cuban for decades to have the Asociación Cultural Yoruba de Cuba as a way to certify who's religious or not. Now, of course, there was a double side to that, because it was also a way to keep tabs on and for the government to know who's a religious person and who's not, right? So there was a double-edged sword to that, and that's the problem. Once you have those types of groups or instruments, they themselves can be misused and serve not necessarily a greater good.
Sure.
Right. So,
well, it sounds to me that even though it's a daunting task, I think what really needs to be established as part of the educating people is to make sure that incoming Babalawos, incoming trainees need to be not only responsible, but to be taught that responsibility, to be taught what it's like to be an actual priest. And that includes females as well. Because otherwise what you're going to have is all these, these guys going around doing things that obviously are not right, for one thing, and they're going to be overcharging, and then they're going to be committing basically murder of animals. Okay, so it's got to be a sort of a convergence on all facets. And how do you get everybody on board? What do we do? What do you think, Baba Faseye?
I mean, that's a challenge. It's something I'm writing about in my book, what you're saying. It's talking about that. So, what I'll say is, there's a verse in Ifa that says, and everybody says this is an axiom that everybody says in Ifa, it says, now that we've initiated you, go reinitiate yourself. Right. So then the problem is that we don't oftentimes see that really taking place. Everybody thinks, oh, it means I need to go learn more, study more, get more information, more knowledge, and whatever. But, and I've said this for years, if you're somebody that you hate women or you hate men or you hate this person or that person, whatever, you're harboring and actively choosing to nurture and hold on to things which are harmful to not only other human beings, but yourself. What happens when you go inside the grove of Ifa, you go into Igbodu, or you go into any type of initiation, you and all of your mental pathology has also been initiated. You initiated all your issues, all your shadow, all your id, all your ego, all your inner demons. You went and initiated them with yourself when you went into the grove. So now those things have taken on another life as well. So when we're talking about reinitiating yourself, we have to talk about looking at it, actively working on whatever your shadow, whatever your issues are, whatever you're talking about, xenophobia, classism, sexism, racism, all these different phobias, homophobia, all these different particular things. You have to be able to look at that and have an honest examination behind what is this? What's really going on? How does this work? How am I being impacted behind this? What things am I choosing to hold on to that I know are no longer good for me? Like beyond just training and teaching people Ifa, we have to teach people, and people have to actually work on on their own self-responsibility, dealing with themselves and their own inner healing. It's just that unfortunately we live in a society and throughout the world where we just want to consume, learn, study, get this, get that, get this, get that. But we don't want to. Yeah, exactly. We feel like, oh, if I just learn more of this, I'll be better. Oh, if I just learn this verse of Ifa. Oh, if I could just chant, this Ijere, like this other Babalawo, then I can be this. And it has nothing to do with that. You can be the best Babalawo, best Ifa, best Orisha, priestess, whatever, and literally be a despicable human being. Somebody that no one wants anything to do with. So then what does it have to say? The fact that you know all these verses of Ifa, all this juju, all this magic, all these different rituals, if meanwhile, your hands, your mind, your heart is not clean. You're harboring and holding on to all that means is that literally it's just lip service. You just, what you say is you're writing love letters in the air. It doesn't go anywhere. You write, can you see what I'm writing here? You can't see it because it's not legible. It's not tangible. You can't be seen by anybody except for the person whose mind that it originates in. Therefore, it means it doesn't exist. So when we're talking about things like this, we have to, beyond the schooling of teaching people about Ifa, we have to teach people about accountability, about being a responsible person, being a good individual, being a good human being, because those things goes far beyond any type of ritual knowledge and things of that nature. Let me give you an example. We have a lot of people inside of Ifa, and I've seen this firsthand, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. We have situations where, in America, it is not people's normal nature to see a goat or four-legged or things like that. Like, unless you live on a farm, everybody doesn't see that. So what happens, you take people to Africa, it's been their first time, they're out here, there's big sacrifice going on, they make a big ebo, they're killing goats, they're killing rams, killing dogs, whatever it is that they're sacrificing, whatever. You have some people who have mental health issues. Some people that have some sort of bipolarism or something, some other trauma. That, in other words, we have to look at, because everybody has some form of trauma, something that's happened to them in their life that's been harmful. So what happens? You take somebody in their environment and move them to a foreign environment, and then they're seeing things not their normal day-to-day life. And some people have some episodes because they're not accustomed to seeing that particular thing. And we say, oh, well, if we just make Ebo, everything's going to be better and whatever. No, you have to look at addressing and healing some of this wounding and some of this trauma. And a lot of people who come to Ifa, particularly people here in America in the diaspora, are coming because there's been some form of wounding. There's been some form of trauma that's occurred in their day-to-day life. And instead of learning how to actively heal and work through that, we're just dumping a bunch of rituals and Ebo and sacrifice and chants and prayers and all this other stuff instead of addressing and dealing with the real issues. We're just covering it up and thinking, oh, if we just teach them more of this and that and the other, it'll make everything better. But what's happened is that you've given this pathology and all these things that they're suffering from, you've given it a new life. And you're actually making the trauma far worse because you're suppressing it. And what happens when you suppress trauma like that? It now takes on another, it takes on another avenue. It shows up in other different types of manifestations. So I'm just saying this to say we have to get past this assumption that says just because somebody's a priest or priestess means that they've done their own inner work. Right. Because 9 times out of 10, that hasn't been the case.
but it's interesting. If we look at the issue, it was raised about animal sacrifice. In terms of the conduct, there are even Ifa has, multitude
of
Ifa and sort of guidelines for conduct and warnings or cautions. They do have warnings in the instructions if you want, right? I'll give you a couple. For instance, Otura Reda says that you shall not exhibit or basically pronounce or show the blood you have spilled as an act of pride or showing off. That's the sign Otura Rera.
Yeah.
Irete Obe says, do not think it is the epitome of being being stupid or an idiot to think that you are above the animal or the being that you have slaughtered, right? Meaning putting yourself that your life was worth more than the life of the animal. That sense of despotism. Ofundi says you kill because you want to live and you don't want to die, but irrevocably, even if you shed rivers of blood, you will eventually die. Okay? Odiwori. Do not be so ignorant or go so far as to forget your own mortality in the sense of having respect for the life that you're taking. Just because you take a life doesn't make you're immortal. Your turn is coming. You might delay it, but your turn is coming. And lastly, Oworin Ofun, or Juani Ofun says, it may surprise you to know that the soul of the animal you sacrifice may find you when you go to Orun, waiting for you to judge you. Okay? So if a Babalawo is and this was actually published, and I give credit to a Babalawo who's passed away. It was a Cuban Babalawo who was initiated in the Odubemi line, and he passed away a couple of years ago. He was a Cuban John living in Spain. Ifashade Odubemi. Ifashade Odubemi, who passed away. Baba knows him.
Yeah, he's a Baba.
But when you look at that, right, it echoes what Baba Faseye has said, and it also speaks to Wolan's concept of self-regulatory. Ifa is everything about Ifa is balance. Everything about Ifa shows that no action comes without an equal and opposite reaction, almost, or has a consequence, right? The balance is what oftentimes, though, because of what Oba has said, is lost when you have bad character. As Oba said, if you get initiated into the grove, you're covetous, jealous, and you have any number of demons, those get initiated too, right? And it's only through a process of either Ifá or life or your peers working with you and helping you to see the error of what you're doing that person can possibly mend their ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, because we're at 1 hour and 50 minutes, and we have to be. I'm sensitive to the fact, Roland, it's almost 1 a.m. there for Roland in England. But I do want to respect. I would like Oba to talk about Obatala. We've talked about many things.
Yes.
It's actually 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my goodness! Sorry.
Okay.
So this is a night owl. We thank
I'm
you
good.
for your
I'm good.
stamina.
I'm good.
So Oba, I'd like you to talk a little bit about Batala, about the Orisha. I mean, we started this conversation about your being recognized with the spiritual title of Oba for Obatala, Oba Orisha Obatala in America. What is Obatala for you? What does Obatala represent for the Yoruba? What does Obatala represent as an Orisha? Talk a little bit about Obatala, and then I'd like to get Boland's own personal experience in terms of what in his town, in his peer, what they speak of Obatala.
So I mean, a lot of people, know this. Obatala, means king of the white cloth or white light. Obatala. So Oba, king. Obatala is king of white light or king of white cloth, right? So Obatala is considered to be the elderly amongst all the Orishas. That's why they call him Agbalagba Orisha. So that means he's an elderly. He's an older deity, And some of the stories he fought say that Obatala was the first king in Ife when our forefathers had a settlement there in Ile Ife. He was the first Oba, or the leader amongst all the deities. And so Obatala, he deals with wisdom, with insight. One thing about Obatala that was always shared with me is that, with Obatala, we don't seek to judge, we seek to understand. And so Obatala teaches us a lot about, compassion and understanding humanity, because Obatala is considered to be the one that molds, human beings, that molded mankind from clay. And so there's many different praise names and things that are used to speak about Obatala and his function in the creation of humanity. And so, the things that, people come to Obatala to worship him for long life, for, good health, for good children, for, all the things of life that anybody wishes to have. Depending upon where you come from in Africa, some places in Nigeria say, and some parts of Ife, other places say that Obatala was the first, and then some places in Nigeria say that he trained Orunmila, that Orunmila himself was the Akapo to Obatala. And there are stories in Ifa that talk about how when the Orunmila came from heaven to the earth and they were going through great difficulties, and they called on Orunmila to come in as a diviner, because Orunmila helped Obatala to carry the load and carry his great load that he had on his back. That's when Obatala gave Orunmila the position of being considered to be, the chief diviner amongst the deities. So that's why Obatala is also, we call him Obarisha, which means he's the king of all the deities. He's the father of all the Orishas. Some places in Nigeria call him, Oba Igbo, the father of the sacred grove, the father of the forest. There's a lot of different praise names that we use when we talk about this deity. And Obatala comes with a pair. He comes with his wife Yemo. Yemo as his spiritual companion. So all things in Ishishe always come with balance. That's the principle of duality, right? So for light, you have dark, male, female, up, down, left, right. So that's considered to be like the counterpart to Obatala. And so he does a lot of his ashe and different things spiritually through that particular, balance of masculine and feminine energy. Obatala is about understanding how things come into creation, how things come into existence. It deals with our intelligence and with our higher intellect, our higher consciousness, higher spiritual thought, and Obatala deals a lot with our purity, the cleanliness of our mind, the cleanliness of our heart, of our actions, of our speech, because Obatala, they say Obatala is ashe. When you say ashe, the word ashe, they say ashe comes from Obatala, because when he came from the heaven to earth, Olodumare gave him the alabalashe, the scepter of authority, to be able to do things in the right way, to be able to establish things and to set things on their course. So Obatala is very important, because without Obatala, nothing else comes about. That's it. You say Ashe, you're talking Obatala language. So, part of the things that we're trying to do in terms of getting people and working with folks in terms of the tradition of worship is just, we have to start with just understanding, what these deities are, how they show up, how they show up in nature. We can see Obatala in different aspects of nature, how that deity also shows up spiritually in our day-to-day life. Our diet. Obatala. They say that Obatala also deals with Abba and Ashe. So Abba is like your intention, your thought, your imagination. Abba and Ashe. So as you think, so you exist, so you live. So and Obatala, he created things with the Igba-Iwa. Igba-Iwa is like the calabash of character. So Obatala teaches us a lot about Iwapele. And I've said this many times, it's a misnomer. People say Iwapele, they think it means good character. But Iwapele means having gentle character. It's not just good character. It's about having gentleness of character. So it's like Bola was saying in the beginning, about how they brought together many different people on the panel to have all these very challenging, tense discussions, right? And everybody agreed, we're not going to get triggered. We're not going to get angry. We might have a very strong, very passionate conversation, but we can still be able to talk to one another in such a way that we can be able to say what we need to say. And at the end of the day, we're still going to be friends. That's a manifestation of Iwapele. What he did, that's the work of Obatala. To be able to say, even when we're talking about this and that and the other, we can still do things pele pele. We can still talk about things gently. We can still talk about things with respect and gently in such a way that, if you say something to somebody in a certain way, we know how to use tact and talk to people in such a way that we can communicate what we have to say without deliberately trying to insult one another. That's Obatala, is ambassadorship, communication. That's a lot of his ashe. I don't want to say too much more about it because there's a lot we can say, and we're talking about Obatala. But those are some of the things that that we want to have in mind when we're talking about this particular deity and his function and what he has to teach us as human beings.
Bolan, what about your understanding of Obatala and in your life, not just the metaphysical, but the actual application in your life and what you've seen?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Kabiyesi because of the last few minutes of talking about Obatala. I found it very, very useful. I found it very, very useful from a learning point of view, because in my experience, the people that do divination for me, so they are who you would refer to in the Nigerian parlance as illiterates. You will call them illiterates. So we don't communicate like that. And they're not able to break anything down for me so articulately. So we don't have that kind of conversation. I go there, I greet them, they divine, they tell me what's up, and they tell me what I need to do. I provide the cash, they get it done, they do it, I turn up. It could be while I'm in England. They do it, they film, they show me, and I go. But I do remember when I first signed up in 2014, because I used to be quite, I used to be like a troll on social media. Do you know what I mean? I used to go after people on social media.
We don't know anything about that.
Anything that I do not like, anything that I do not like, I will go for it. So I started with the pastors that had private jets. That was my pet peeve. So I will go against these pastors with private jet with so much venom, and all the people who love them will be losing their mind. And obviously, being a journalist, I've got like big words, so I keep going, and I have a lot of stamina to argue, and I keep going and going and going and going. You know, so that was my thing. I get a kick off it, and then I turned on the Nigerian president. You know, and then it was my pet peeve. And I kept on and on and on. So when I found the faith, the first thing my Babalawo told me was about Iwakwele. And then I realized that when I was a Christian, the kind of attitude that I should have as a follower of Christ, according to the book, I didn't really exhibit it as much. But when I became an Ifa devotee, is when I started to act like a responsible human being. You know, like the Iwakwele trait. You know, so every now and again, I'll go back to my old self and I'll be like, I'm about to curse you out right now. And then it will slide into my inbox, my Babalawo. And there's an Odu that he gave me, like, Agbati Obinu Lomore. It is the elder that does not get angry, that has plenty children. You know, so he keeps saying to me, watch your outbursts, watch your outbursts. So, but I never really associated that with Obatala. My experience with Obatala was order. Order. So whenever things were chaotic, my personal circumstances, my financial life, my work life, my professional life, just when I feel like I'm discombobulated and out of like an innate feeling, I'd be like, can you tell Yeye that I want a divine? So this woman that does it for me, her daughter is a friend of mine. So whenever we catch up, oh, how's England? Oh, how's Abeokuta? I hope everyone is fine. How's your family? Can you tell Yeye that I want a divine? It's been a while. Or I want to feed my Ori. Oftentimes, it's always Obatala. So she'll come back and say, Mama said, you have to bow Obatala. We have to buy snails. We have to buy rooster. We have to buy that. So it's always Obatala. And true to type, once that is done, order is restored. It doesn't mean that my bank account suddenly have thousands of pounds in it or anything like that. But I just realized that I've had a reset. You know, like your computer is acting funny and you just do a reset and everything is back to normal. So I always feel like there's a reset, and that's been my experience. But hearing Baba talk now, I realize that Obatala is at the heart of everything, really. So some of the things that's happening to me, some of the times that they've divined for me or done my Ori or feed my Ori, whatever, I realize that Obatala is at the heart of it, even in terms of wisdom. So I got myself a bit of side hustle recently. I started a record label, did my private radio station, just trying to do so many things because I feel like I need to get stuff done before I get tired. And I've been like negotiating a lot with people, dealing with different characters. You know, sometimes they push my buttons. I want to kick off. I literally want to kick off like, no, these people must not know who I am. I'm about to tell you who I am, the stamina that I have for trouble. You guys are about to experience it firsthand. You know, I said to somebody, I said, I'm about to descend on you like a bomb. Like you have no idea who you're about to cross. And then after like 2 days, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to breathe in and breathe out. and the Orishas are going to sort stuff out. I'm not going to do that. And then, so now I realize Obatala is at the heart of all that negotiation. So that's been my experience, really.
Interesting.
Oh, shit. Yeah, Obatala in the Afro-Cuban, some of the main things, just adding, is, as was said, Obatala is the mediator, not just among human beings, but mediator among the Orisha. Whenever there's a spiritual dispute among Orisha, there's Obatala's energy that comes in to settle the dispute and to bring peace and all that. Second thing is Obatala is owner of all the heads. That's why I say when anybody has problems with their head, anything that is abnormal with the head, it is Obatala you pray for or to. Also, Obatala governs everything for us that has to do with children or people that have some sort of disability or impediment or mental illness or physical disability and so forth. Also, Obatala is the patron of all albino. Albinos are sacred to Obatala. Right? There's another thing. And also, when it comes to the ability to save somebody who's very gravely ill, one of the number one Orisha to go to is Obatala, because either Obatala or Orunmila, or the two working together, is when somebody's really like death is there, Obatala is the only Orisha that can say back off a bit, like give some time.
Interesting.
And they say Obatala begins and ends all wars. Well, that's the other side of Obatala as well, is that he ends all wars. Because
and begins them.
CEO at the table, So anytime you want to get things done, everybody comes to the table, all discuss what's going to happen. And the CEO is, okay, now we're going to do this and this. So maybe one time you need to have peace. Another time you decide that it's time to go to war. But everybody, all wars need to begin and end with Obatala.
Boland, he's ready.
Yes. Because it's not
funny.
It's
funny.
To go.
Yeah. It's funny, Kabiyesi, because I've just been oozing in confidence since I embraced the path. Not boastfulness, not showy, but just inner peace. Man. So it's almost like you're Mike Tyson in a club. Yes. You're gonna be fine.
That's right.
You're not necessarily looking for a fight, but God help anybody that tries to have a fight. You'd be like, are you sure what you're about to do? So that I have this kind of inner reassurance, like I feel like I'm being looked after. But because sometimes you're not really thinking about what you're doing, it's how you're feeling. Like the negotiations I alluded to. Yes. I felt like people were trying to take advantage of me. Like, why would you try to take advantage of my attitude? I was being nice to you. I was chasing. There's a Yoruba proverb. I'm chasing meat in your direction, and you're chasing a snake in my direction. So I'm trying to chase a rabbit towards you so you can catch it. And here you are chasing a cobra in my direction. So it's a Yoruba proverb, and straight away it came to my head, like, we're trying to do a business together. And I've been breaking my back trying to help you emerge. But you've been having like meetings, how to rip me off. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, I'm not the guy you rip off. I will explode into your, all over your business. But then, and secondly, I'm thinking, well, I've got your wishes. Like, you don't really want to mess with me like that, So I now thought to myself, right, I need to control my vibes because I do not want negative vibes towards these people because these are my friends. They're just slightly naughty. So I decided, right, we're going to have a little conversation. I'm going to say, so I remember having that chat. It was like this, 4 of us, and I had to take control. So every time they wanted to talk, as I said, stop. We're not going to fight and we're not going to fall out. But let me say what my issues are. And then when they say what they're trying to say, I'm like, really? You guys are not trying to like pass the buck? I said, don't worry. It's fine. Whatever you want is what I want. So I found myself doing something out of character, you know, like trying to calm everything down, you know, but under normal circumstances, I'd be like, oh, okay, it's on now. Right, fine. Okay, fine. Let's see what's going to happen. You know, so now that Baba spoke, I realized, yeah, that's the Obatala, me maturing, getting older, being more matured as a spiritual person, and being able to just handle my energy. You know, because I feel like I have the Ogun energy. I used to really feel great about that. Like I've got the Ogun vibes in me, you know, but I feel like the Obatala one is slightly, you know, I feel better that way, like Iwakwele, you know, Iwakwele. Yeah.
For us in the Afro-Cuban or the Odu or Wani May, which is a warning May, says that the war will not come to the earth unless Ajaguna or Batala Ajaguna gives the word.
Ajaguna. Oh wow!
Unless Obatala allows it. Yeah.
Wow, you know that's my title.
Wow.
You know, I'm a chief. Kabiyesi, I'm a chief in Ijebu.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a chief. So I'm an Otumba.
Ah, Otumba. Ah, Benny.
Yes. So my title is Ogboye Jaguna. Ogboye Ajaguna of Ilodo.
Wow.
Warrior.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Africa, Obatala Ajaguna is the warrior path of Obatala, and his beads are primarily white with an offspring of red.
Oh wow. Kabiyesi, I don't know whether you know that I'm a boxer. I'm gonna ask Jérôme to show you my YouTube videos knocking people out within seconds. I used to be your typical angry black person. Really.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had what you call they call it unlicensed
Anger
boxing.
management?
They called it white collar boxing.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So you would have your regular jobs and you sign up to fight somebody. So they just call me up and say, Peter, there's this guy, is a plumber, is about 200 pounds. What do you weigh right now? I'll be like, I weigh 180. That's fine, you'll be great. And then we meet at the local YMCA and beat the shit out of each other.
That's a next level anger management class.
Wow.
I was going to say, now that's anger management.
We used to get paid. We used to get paid as well. We used to get paid. It's like Fight Club. And I used to like, like while I'm wrapping my hands, I used to get excited, like, ooh, I'm going to beat somebody up today, all my days.
Oh, Lord. There's a whole different side of you. Whole different side of you, my brother.
They chose the right title for you, Loye. They chose the right title for you.
Yes, Kabiyesi, they did. Yeah.
Wow. Ajaguna.
Yes.
So there you
But the irony was I got beat up more than I won.
It's okay.
Yeah. I have like so like before I got into it, I remember when I brushed my teeth, all my teeth they touch each other. So I have like a perfect teeth. Now they're like that. From the punches to my jaw, so my teeth like they've missed. They don't touch anymore. So I've had like 40 fights, and I think I won 10. 30 times I got beat up badly, but I kept turning up, and I kept coming back, and I kept coming back, because the excitement of going into a ring as a boxer, like you have people around you, they got muscles, but they would never step in the ring. But here I am with skinny long arms and footwork, and I'd be like, let's go. Yeah, the ones that say, oh, there's this guy. I'd be like, let's go. Where? Let's go. So the fact that, I was getting a kick off the fact that I wasn't afraid of anyone. So I just stepped in the ring like, what you going to do? You're going to punch me, I'm going to punch you straight back. And then that became my thing. And at some point when I was getting close to 40, I thought, nah, enough of this foolishness. And so I retired.
Wow.
So yeah, but I could send you Facebook links. I mean, YouTube links if you want to watch it. I've got like 3 fights that you can watch on YouTube.
A highlight reel.
Highlight reel, yes.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I know, I do too.
Yeah. We're gonna put that up.
Real Fight Club.
Real Fight Club.
Yes. Yes.
My dear friends, in the interest of time, because we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes, Oba Faseye, is there anything you'd like to pass on in terms of an announcement, message, any parting, any words, for as we wind down the show? Anything you'd like to tell the audience, or?
I think I was just thinking about what Bolan was saying earlier about us. We need to start, putting together some representation behind, people coming into the tradition. I think what he said about film representation, like things like that, I think that's a really good idea. I really like that. So I think that's something we definitely need to have more conversation and discussion, and find some ways to actually put that into motion. Because we've been telling these stories and things like this of practices and traditions for a long time, and I think as much and I've said this for years, as much as we revere and going back to Africa to learn things as well, it's a two-sided dialogue. So just as much as we have things to learn from them at home, they also have some things that they can benefit from learning from us as African descended people over here. It's not just a one-sided dialogue. And that's something that we oftentimes, as a challenge, is that we romanticize and we feel that all the wisdom and insight and beneficial things is only over there. But we also need to remember, that we have something to bring to the table too. And I think what Bolan said about that is a fantastic enterprise. I think it's a really good thing to really start exploring, how we can really start bringing together some representation and talking about this. And I think that as people back home in Africa, I think with them even seeing, people here, in the Western world coming into the tradition, I think that also feeds back to giving a heightened sense of pride and dignity. And I think that works towards getting people to really start taking a look at what they have. I mean, it's in your own backyard. You wake up, it's there. And it's those of us who are over here, we have to travel back and forth to be able to immerse ourselves. And in addition to that, I think we need to really start thinking about breaking ground and start establishing things over here in the Western part of the world. We need to start establishing, our own places of worship and places where we can come together and gather to worship, to venerate, to be able to do the things that we need to do. In other words, what I'm saying is we don't have to just wait for this to happen, in Africa and whatever, but we too need to do the work and find ways to be able to foster and to create the type of world we want to live in, and that's something we have to really think about. We can't just always be looking back and say, oh, back in the old days, things used to be like this, things used to be like that, whatever. What can we do with what we have here? What can we do to create and to make the world and to make our community the type of places that we want to be in, the types of associations and community and people that we want to find ourselves being a part of? So, that's our goal here. That's certainly my intention and my goal. We've been working on doing this here for a while. We've made some good friends and people, friends with folks, here in America, people overseas and other countries, people in Europe and Germany and different folks. I have a lot of students and friends and community in different parts of the world. And this very conversation we've all been having here for the last several hours, I've been, been fortunate to sit in and have this same type of conversations here in a lot of different communities. So I think that collectively, I think globally, I think a lot of us are starting to come to some similar conclusions about some things that need to be done and some things that need to happen to move things forward, in order to be able to grow. You know, things always, we always know that everything always begins and it always starts back home in Africa, but we too have a responsibility to progress things and to be able to move it into the next place, because we too will be the elders and be the older people later on that our children will be telling our stories. And so, you know, we want to ask ourselves, so are we just talking and whatever? Are we setting a foundation for our children to be able to have to build on? That'll be their inheritance and be part of their legacy, you know, going forward. And I think it starts with discussions and the plans of things like this. So, you know, just, you know, on my end, that's something I'd like to see more of this happen. But more than just talk, I'd like to see action. We need to start actually doing things now, because we've talked about it enough, and now is the time that we need to start putting things in motion. You know, that's what I'm working on with my book, is putting out more information. In the book that I'm writing, it's not just about talking about verses of Ifa and whatever. It's really a discussion. It's a modern interpretation of Yoruba cosmology for daily view and practice, because we need to have a good perspective about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Before you can have a practice, you have to establish the view. And unfortunately, a lot of times we get into the view first. We're doing all this juju and all these other things and rituals, whatever, but we don't have a proper view that's been established first. If you want to be successful, you have to understand, who am I? What am I here to do? What's my destiny? What's my place? All those things we have to be looking at. Before you start trying to do something else, you have to have that introspection and be actively working on addressing
reflection. Definitely.
That part's important, because that's our humanity, right? We have to remember the human piece. It's easy to get into these ritual things and whatever else, and we lose our connection to this world. We want to think about all these other things that's happening spiritually, but a spiritual practice also comes with being a good father, being a good mother, being a good husband, being a good neighbor, you know, being a good individual. You know, that's where the real spiritual practice happens. Because if you just go off and you make these
whole point,
sacrifice this goat and whatever, but meanwhile you step outside your house and you're very angry or vindictive person, or you're a cruel person, then all the Ebo in the world was a waste. It was for nothing. You didn't accomplish it. So, you know, my view is that we need to be looking at addressing these things before we start trying to get deep into all the things. We need to really start having, you know, this type of introspection and start having these types of conversations. And we have to have the strength and courage to start establishing and building our communities. In other words, my point, what I'm saying is that Africa and Nigeria going back home isn't going to fix all of our problems. It's just giving us some perspective and looking back at who we once were. But it's up to us to be able to grow things. You know, things in Africa are done the way that they're done there, and there's their destiny there. Those of us who are descended from there and live in different parts of the world, we also have a part of that destiny where we live, in order to be able to do something. If we don't do something with that, then it means that all the sacrifices and things that have been done by our progenitors, it was all for nothing. It was a waste. We didn't accomplish anything. It means we're just going in circles. So, you know, I'm just saying, I'm hoping that we'll be able to, this will be the beginning of us really, you know, starting to take some concrete action behind good representation and really, you know, taking some concrete steps to start making things into the direction where we know it needs to go. So, you know, I'm glad to be here to get today and sit down with everybody and, you know, be able to start having this conversation. You know, it's been looking at my phone here back and forth. Like, there's been a lot of dialogue and a lot of feedback that a lot of people have had about this discussion. So this means that this is a relevant discussion where we're talking about this.
Absolutely, it is. And I think it's a wonderful discussion that we're able to just sit here and talk about Ifa and what Ifa is about. So, Jean-Jérôme, is there,
I have a parting word for Roland. Roland, what if is there something you want to, you know, conclusions or some remarks, summary remarks?
Yeah. Well, first of all, once again, I want to thank Kabiyesi. You know, so I've learned so much today. There's so much wisdom. Yes. So also, Kabiyesi, I wanted to touch on the observations that you made in terms of it's a two-way street. So it's not just Nigeria or Osun, Ife being the center for everything. Yes. I think we can also gain from the diaspora community. As a diaspora and myself, I know the influence that we have over our people in Nigeria. They kind of, maybe because the money that you send,
yes,
in the politics, in the dynamics of your family and friends, you always have some influence. So the diaspora community will do wonders for this faith. So I'm thinking a beautiful Ifa cathedral, will not be amiss. A beautiful place of worship in your kingdom where you domicile as king. Where beautiful things will be happening. And when I came into Ifa, it was done on Skype. My first divination was via Skype.
Wow.
It was exhilarating. My Babalawo was in South Africa. I nearly chuckled because it felt like stuff of movie. I nearly chuckled because it was just my journalistic instinct that made me agree.
Wow.
When he said to me, I'm a Babalawo, I nearly laughed because straight away I felt like he was jobless and he was desperate. Was why he said that's what he did, because he was my friend in school. We knew each other. And I found him on Facebook and I saw stuff and I'm thinking, what's going on? So when I reached out and he said, oh, I'm a Babalawo in South Africa, I'm like, what? Okay. So my first encounter was on Skype. So just like this video, he said, tell me your mother's name. And yeah, I know your name, you're Babalawo. Just tell me your mom's name. And he did that, and gave me the Odu and kind of interpreted the Odu. Like if you get caught here, you can no. But then if you get caught here, it's like, oops. So the first few readings, it was a bit embarrassing because it saw through me and I did not want to admit that. So I kind of felt like he's an educated guess. This guy kind of watched me on social media and tried to be smart with me. So I refused. I refused to acknowledge the reading, because he speculated about my financial circumstance. And that was a bit embarrassing. So I refused, And then he went straight for the jugular, spoke about my children, And I had a little boy with special needs. He went there. Now, this boy, nobody knows that, only my close friends. Only my family member. So he went there. And then he went to it was too much. I had to open up, like, what's going on? And then, so I digress. My first contact with Ifa was over Skype. So I'm talking about what the technology can really do. Yes. A temple where you domicile as a spiritual leader, people in Oshobo consulting via Skype, getting their reading, via stream. What are we using now? StreamYard, whatever, having a ball, all sorts of stuff done in the temple, people gathering, having sessions, having workshops, just having this beautiful place where we gather.
Yes.
And it's appealing and we're learning. That would help our younger audience, our younger relatives, up and coming young people who are kind of disillusioned with the stealing and the fakery that they get from like the other religion, like the churches, like the jet flying, whatever. Because my experience is some people don't like that anymore, but then they don't know where else to go. So if we can be having this kind of opportunity, I feel like it'll be great. So, that's my suggestion, Kabiyesi, going forward. Yeah. But for those listening, anybody that's watching us, I just wanted to say that it's the thing that makes us shine the most. It's that very thing that they make us hate. So I've realized that all this while, when I was detached from this faith, I did myself a disservice, because the moment I've embraced it, it's done nothing but good for me. Even when I've been to places where people have caught a sight of my beads on my wrist, I've gotten people showing me respect, people showing me, treating me with regard. Whether it was born out of fear, whether it's the aura of Obatala, I don't know. But at no time has anybody seen my beads and treated me like shit. At no time has anybody found out about my Ifa devotion or me being an Orisha worshipper and treated me with scorn. They probably look at me, maybe in the case of my family members, and feel like, oh my God, what has our brother turned into? But nobody has seen me and treated me like I didn't count for anything. People have treated me with a lot of regard, a lot of respect, once they found out that I'm a devotee. So for me, that's power. And so I say to people, like, it is an incredible opportunity here. You need to step forward and embrace what belongs to you, what's going to make you a king, what's going to make you walk like a prince or princess that you are. Only this religion of our ancestors will bring that. That's my personal experience. Every single time I've stepped out since I've walked this path, I've had no reason to regret. I felt safe, I felt strong, and I felt a lot of, respect and regard. And so for that, I can only recommend it.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Well, everybody, I'd like to thank you both, our guests. Oba Faseye, congratulations.
Thank you.
May Olodumare and Obatala guide your path. May he protect you and allow your message and your knowledge and your experience and the wisdom of Orisha to flow through you so that people can hear it, so that people can take heart in the belief system and better their life. And Bolan, I love you, my brother. Continue your efforts in the BBC, continue your efforts with your radio station, continue to have that newfound, confidence and pride in your indigenous belief system, in Ifa, in Orisha. And as I say to all our guests, you're not alone. You have a brother here in Canada, a sister here in Canada, a community in the States, a brother in the States.
I'll be talking all on as well. We'll be staying in contact. Babalawo.
Ashe.
Ajaguna.
Ashe. We have to support each other because, together we're strong. And together we can leave a positive influence, a positive legacy for the next generation. And we owe that to the next generation to do that, right?
We owe that to our ancestors.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And I just wanted to I'd be remiss, this is a tradition, to thank our most faithful four-legged
furry creatures.
Mojo.
Oh, there he is.
He's watched the last, I don't know how many shows, 3 months worth of shows.
Mojo.
And now his sister's in on the act as well. I call Mojo Awo Ologbo. Because he's always there very faithfully.
There's a title, Ologbo Jigono. Ologbo Jigono, the big cat. So there's a Yoruba movie about a character who is like a chief priest. They call him Ologbo Jigono, the big cat. Babawo. So that looks like Ologbo Jigono, yeah.
Well, Teresa, over to you to wrap up, and so we can go off the air because I think we're at 2 hours and 33 minutes, and I feel bad for Bolan because it's 3-something in the morning now. Man's
oh my God!
I'm good.
I know, and
you don't have this opportunity all the time to sit with his royal highness, a chief priest for that matter, and now this new relationship for me, I relish it and I cherish it.
So do I.
So
thank you.
The sleep can wait. I will sleep really well, actually. By the time I sleep, I will literally pass out.
So I want to thank Baba Faseye Ifagbemi for coming on our show again. And Bolin, it was a pleasure meeting you. Honestly, it really was. And, you know, we all have to stay in touch, obviously. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in, okay, for sticking with us for this length of time. And those who popped off, they can always come back and, you know, we've got our all our shows recorded, so they can come back and look at these shows. So I want to say good night to you, and good night to you, Bolin. Good night to you, Baba Faseye. Good night, Jean Jérôme. I'm starving, and I'm sure everybody else who's tuned in is either tired or hungry. So I will say good night to everybody, and thank you all for tuning in. We've got one more. We've got a couple of shows before our year end. We're going to do a year end party. I know I've said it before. I got to get moving on that. I've got the guest list, okay, and so anyway, I just don't want to take anybody else's time away. So I'm going to say good night, farewell, auf Wiedersehen.
Odaro.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Good night.